Hi, I'm Matthew Giobbi. Welcome to my piano studio. And I want to share with you a little introduction to the kind of teaching that I do with the piano. My specialty is teaching adults who want to learn to play the piano for pleasure, to sit down and simply enjoy themselves, spontaneous improvisational music making, as well as playing music that other composers have written. But what makes my technique, my approach unique is that I approach the piano as a composer rather than as a performing pianist. So my introduction to the piano was largely based on introduction to composition and improvisation at the piano. So in addition to learning how to play the music of other people, how to read music, how to play the music of other people, what I like to do is get students to sit down at the piano and make music for themselves, by themselves, with themselves and with others. So I'd like to give you an introductory lesson to how we go about spontaneously composing at the piano. This will give you the ability to sit down at the piano and to make music with yourself or with others, for yourself or for others, however you like. So we begin with just looking at the architecture of the piano keyboard. We have a series of 2s and 3s, V's and W's, V, W, V, W, V, W. And every V, just to the left of it, is a C. So this is a C, it's a low C. There's a middle C, another C, and etc. Every time you see a V, the note just before this V is a C. Likewise, whenever you see a W, the note just before that is an F. There's an F, here's an F, down here is an F. And so we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C again. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And that's the architecture of the keyboard. Two notes that are the same letter name, the same tone, but are one is lower and one is higher. So here's a low C and here's a middle C. Here's a higher C. These are 8 notes apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And therefore we call it an octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, an octave. So these are C octaves, D octaves, E octave, F, G, etc. The basic architecture of the keyboard is just this pattern of V's and W's, octaves, repeated from high, an upper register, to low, down here in the lower register. So if we find middle C, and the easiest thing to do is just stick to white notes to begin to make music. The white keys, you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And to anyone who grew up in Western tradition, you recognize this as a major scale. Here's the first degree of the scale. This is the second degree of the scale. Third degree, 1, 2, 3. Fourth degree, fifth degree, sixth degree, seventh degree. Back to the first degree. So we make melodies out of that scale, that major scale. For example, here's one melody. The Ode to Joy by Ludwig van Beethoven. Countless melodies are made just out of those 7 different notes. The 8th octave. So melody alone, in my experiences as a composer and as a listener of music, in a lot of music, especially pop music and jazz music, the melodies are written just within, like the Ode to Joy, just within these first 5 notes of the scale. If you notice, they are only these 5 notes. We're not using these upper notes in the scale. You can put your thumb and start on C and write a lot of melodies with just those 5 notes. You can also pick your hand up and put your thumb on the G and play those 5 notes, the 5th degree, 6th, 7th, 1st, and 2nd degree of the scale, and come up with very beautiful melodies with those 5 notes. And there are some other tricks you can do. The pentatonic scale, 5-note scale, is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th degree of the scale. I'm just simply playing those same notes inverted. Six. You can come up with, boy, an infinite amount of melodies with those. Penta, meaning 5, penta, tonic, tones, 5-tone scale. So that's how to do melody. If you want to just sit down at the piano and make melodies, you can use. Now let's talk about harmony, how to add texture, depth to the piece. So here's an example of doing harmony. Harmony with melody. You can go up an octave. To harmonize, we can use intervals. Intervals are 2 notes combined, or we can use chords. That's 3 or more tones combined. So an interval would be, there's an interval, C to D. It's called a major second. There's a very dissonant interval, minor second. We have a major third, 1, 2, 3, major third, or we could have a minor third. Changes it's like mixing colors. You have a perfect 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a perfect 5th. We can have what's called a diminished 5th, and this is a very dissonant sound. Adds a lot of tension. It wants to resolve to there, or resolve to there. We have a major 6th. Or a minor 6th. We have a major 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or a minor 7th. There's a bit of a longingness in that feel. And a perfect octave. So we can use just one note with our accompaniment. Our left hand will be our accompaniment. We can just use one note to accompany in an interval with a melody. Let's do Ode to Joy. I'm just going to use C. That's a very basic, simple accompaniment. We could use C, F, and G. Let's try that using these 3 notes. whatever you'd like. You could use just the fifth, C and G. This will sound like a bagpipe. So with each one of these tones of the scale, in your left hand you can build what's called a triad. Tri meaning 3 tones together, a triad chord, a basic chord. So here, if we put our pinky on C, and then skip a note, go to E, and then G, we have a triad. It's a C major triad. Listen to what we can do with that. That sounds nice, but I guess it could get a little monotonous. So we could build those 3-note chords, those triads, on each of the scale degrees. So C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B. This is basic. It's called root position. Your hand, set it and forget it. Your hand's in this shape, and you just lift it and drop it onto the next degree of the scale. And you have a C major chord, a D minor chord, E minor chord, F major chord, G major chord, A minor chord, and a B diminished chord. Back to C. We call this the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 6 chord, and the 7 chord. Back to 1. And of course, we can harmonize using that. So I was simply going 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 1 chord to the 4 chord to the 5 chord to the 1. You can use your ear to see where that chord would fit into your ear with whatever melody you're playing with. So taking that as an example, thinking compositionally or improvisationally at the piano, you could say, I'm going to play a measure of 1 chord, a measure of 4 chord, a measure of 5 chord, and then a measure of 1 chord, and then repeat that over and over again. And now I repeat it. 1, 4, 5, 1, 1. Now once you have that pattern down, why not just take the first 5 notes of the scale you're working on. C major scale, we'll do it up here so we have room for our left hand to accompany. And we'll just come up with a melody. 2, 3. Let the right hand do it at once. And you can write your own music using the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord. Don't forget, you can use the 2 chord, the 3 chord, Now, if you want to add texture to your compositional, improvisational music making, we're going to add one extra note to those triads and make it a seventh chord. So instead of playing C, E, G, we're going to play C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. We're going to add a seventh to it. That's called a seventh chord. Here's a C major 7. I'm using my 5 finger, my 3 finger, my 2 finger, and my 1 finger in my left hand. C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, and a B half diminished 7. Now we can just practice this. And suddenly our music takes on a great deal of depth and sophistication. So that's using seventh chords, and you can practice those in both hands. Root position seventh chords and improvise your melody in the stay on the white keys. One to the 4. To the 2, to the 5, to the 1. You usually see these chords written out in Roman numerals. Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, Roman numeral 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. We call this the tonic chord. Subdominant, dominant, and dominant. Tonic, sorry. What if we do a little improv using that pentatonic scale that we talked about? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Let's see what we can do. We'll start on the 4 chord this time. Let's go to a 2 chord. Let's go to a 5. And back home to 1. Making music just spontaneously. Those are some basics. When you're playing these chords, I would like you to be conscientious and cognizant of feeling tension, release, tension, release. For example, tension, release, tension, release. How about away, home, away, far away, and home. You can feel tension, release, or realize that that 1 chord is always going to feel like home. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are always going to feel away to various degrees. I like to think of this as home, next door, home, home, down the street, home, home, a couple blocks away, home, home, pretty far away, and home, home, over the mountain, and home, and home. You can either go here or here, it's the same chord. Away and home. So home, away, home, tension, release. So pick out your favorite melodies. A little French folk tune, how about that? Let's see how we harmonize that. And that's a beginning lesson of playing the piano as a composer rather than reading on the sheet music what someone else has written. This is for spontaneous music making at the piano, improvisation, writing your own music. So I'm teaching you as a pianist to think like a composer rather than thinking like someone who's playing the music that someone else has composed. Enjoy playing the piano. So I hope that lesson gave you enough to chew on for a while. What I introduced to you in that basic lesson is probably enough material for you to spend. You could just use that and spend all the time that you'd like making music with just those resources. And of course, the more you want to make your music more sophisticated, maybe a little more sensitive, a little more textured, the more we have to learn. A few basic concepts that I like to introduce as soon as a new student begins. The first is, it's called the primary rule. And I take this from a teacher named Chogyam Trungpa. And the primary rule is cessation of judgment of the self and cessation of judgment of others. So the primary rule that we remember when we come to music lessons, to making music, is we stop judging ourselves and we stop judging others. No talk of good or bad, no talk of right or wrong. It's just making music. Music is not ethical. Music is not a moral statement. You can't have good music and bad music. You just have music. And the sooner that we get away from this attitude of judging others as being good or bad, or judging ourselves as being good or bad, the sooner we break that habit, the sooner we start enjoying music and music making so much more. And it also allows us to enjoy the music of others and appreciate it and enjoy it with cessation of judgment. So that's the primary rule that I introduce to all my students. Cessation, the stopping of judgment of others, and the stopping of judgment of myself. It's a hard habit to break. The second concept that I introduce to students is a little bit of a change of language. Instead of thinking of mistakes, we think of opportunities. So if you're playing a piece of music and you hit a note or a chord that you didn't intend to hit, it's a surprise. We don't say, oh, I made a mistake. We say, where can that go? We begin to hear possibilities rather than mistakes or errors. And that concept I take from Herbie Hancock in his book Possibilities, which is a beautiful book to read if you are interested. It's a very inspirational and very important book, Herbie Hancock's Possibilities. Replace the word wrong or incorrect with, or mistake rather, replace the word mistake with possibility, a new opening, going someplace you haven't gone before. Again, it has a lot to do with stopping judgment. Another turn of phrase or changing of this, how we talk about things that if I find useful is rephrasing, instead of saying this is hard or this is difficult, say this is unfamiliar. The difference between something that's hard and something that's easy is a matter of familiarity. The more familiar, in other words, the more time you spend practicing it or playing it, the easier it gets. There is not hard or easy. There's familiar or unfamiliar. It's an important attitude adjustment when approaching music. One other concept that I think is very useful is getting rid of the idea of talent. You're not here to become a concert pianist. I won't get into a debate about the background of the psychological research on talent and innate ability, nature versus nurture, and all this stuff. It's too complicated. But this is what I'll tell you. If you want, in the words of William James, if you want a very useful fiction, an approach, a theory, an idea that will work, get rid of the idea of talent and instead think about motivation, desire, and joy. So instead of thinking, I can't do this because I don't have talent, get rid of the idea of talent and think of practice and spending time with the instrument instead of thinking in terms of talent. You'll find that most people that you think have talent have actually spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours at the instrument. You see them once, you think it's talent. We just don't understand the amount of effort and work and time that was spent. So forget about this idea of talent. It's not important. You're not coming here and to become a concert pianist. You're coming here to enjoy music making and to learn how to do that. So forget about talent. I think those are some useful basic ideas. And I can offer you great books for reading if you're interested in the emotional well-being side of being a musician and making music. Thanks for watching.